Hey, it's Dr. Tamara Edwards coming to you from Magnolia Wellness and Psychology. Again, I'm giving you your third video in your welcome series. And this one is all about psychoeducational evaluations and learning disabilities. So most of the time, people have no idea what I mean or what other people mean when they say psychoeducational evaluation. Most of the time, if you've heard this term, it's because a school, your school, your child's teacher, someone has referred you for one and used those words specifically, but probably have not told you what that is or includes or anything. But a psychoeducational evaluation, you kind of can get a sense of it from the word, but it's mostly related to learning disability assessment. We are looking to see what sort of academic skills you have and what might fall into a learning disability category, what gets in the way of you being able to maintain your grades if you or your child is failing a class or they consistently have low scores within one subject. A psychoeducational evaluation is designed to explore those a little bit more. So your learning disabilities specifically are the types of conditions that affect the way that you process information related to academic skills. In this case, it's usually reading, writing, and math. The most common one that we've all probably heard something about is related to dyslexia, and that is specifically learning disability in reading. This affects the way that you read words, the ways that it might show up for you in comprehension, how it might impact reading fluency. So your reading rate, do you read fast, do you read slow? Are you someone who makes a lot of mistakes when you're reading? Different things like that. Another area of learning disability is dysgraphia, which is in writing, having trouble expressing yourself through writing, whether that is writing sentences about you or a topic, or in an essay format. So if I ask you to write about what you like to do, what's your favorite hobby, then are you someone who struggles to convert whatever your thoughts are into a written format? The third area of learning disabilities is also dyscalculia. So that is math related, all things math computation. So quick math problems. If I give you 30 seconds to solve about 10 addition, subtraction problems, then it might be something that you struggle a little bit more with. Even if it's untimed, general math, decoding and computation might be something that you struggle with as well, and that could fall in the dyscalculia range. So some of the more common signs and symptoms of a learning disability, I've already mentioned a few of them, but if you're someone who commonly reverses your letters, so B's look like D's or P's look like B's. If you have to read a passage multiple times and you still have no idea what's going on, and it's not necessarily related to being inattentive in that moment, but you're still having to reread the passage in order to answer a question about it. If you have trouble decoding words, so when we read and we come in contact with unfamiliar words, we break that word into its sounds, into its syllables, and sound that out to be able to figure out what that new word is. And sometimes people with dyslexia or sometimes learning disability in reading can have trouble with decoding, breaking those words down into their sounds and using them in that way. You might also have trouble with misspelling things or misreading. So I'm adding in words and passages that were not there, or I'm skipping over words that are there in order to get through it. Sometimes it can be really slow reading, labored to the point where if you're sitting next to them or across from them, it can seem very painful. And the people who have the trouble with that, I think they know what I mean. That's a good example. If you have trouble expressing yourself through writing, or you're someone who makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to math calculation, when you're not allowed to use a calculator, then that can also fall in that range as well. So A psychoeducational evaluation is one that assesses for a learning disability by, before I jump into that, let me talk a little bit about how a learning disability presents. So I've talked about the signs and the symptoms, but usually a learning disability is one that shows up in people who have average to above average intelligence. That doesn't mean that if you have, we've done an IQ assessment and your IQ is below average, that you don't have a learning disability. That's not what that means. You can still have one. But we have to suss out whether or not your learning difficulties are related to lower cognitive ability or an actual learning disability. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. But typically, you find learning disabilities in people who have average to above average intelligence, where their academic skills are significantly below expectations. So for example, if we've done an IQ assessment and your ability is in the above average range, but your reading skills are in the below average range or significantly below average, then that can usually denote a learning disability. Or if you're someone who is able to achieve average academic skills, let's use reading as an example. If you're someone who is able to achieve average reading scores, but it takes you a lot of work, it takes you a lot of time, it takes you a lot of effort and energy in order to be able to do that, that can also denote a learning disability as well. So you're only able to achieve average functioning or average skills through an extraordinary amount of effort. So those two things are there as well, which, as you can kind of get an idea for, can be most of the school population who are having trouble with academics. And so that also makes it a nuanced part of our evaluation as well. So our evaluations include IQ testing, because we need to figure out where your baseline cognitive ability is and whether or not that is an area that could affect your academic functioning. But we also need to understand just baseline where you are. Are your language skills up to par? Is that something that could impact reading and reading acquisition and different things like that? What is your memory like? How quickly or slowly do you process information? If you're someone who processes information slowly, then it makes sense that you would read slowly. So then we have, kind of an explanation for that as well. And of course, we're looking at academic skills. So we're going to do a broadband academic functioning assessment. So we're looking at all the areas together. And then based on, the area that you're coming in for, whether that is reading, then we're going to do more extensive reading assessments. So we're going to look specifically at reading as a whole. Word reading, fluency, comprehension, rapid reading. We're going to timed reading, untimed reading. We're looking at all of those things and whether or not they fall in ranges of below expectation, or we're looking at your effort when it comes to those things as well. Something that we also include in our psychoeducational evaluations is related to executive functioning. So I've talked about processing speed and memory. Those are things that we use as well, but it's also about whether or not there's something that gets in the way of you being able to process information, to be able to organize information in a way that could impact your learning ability as well. And since there is a higher kind of comorbid rate of anxiety and depression that comes with learning disabilities, we also include an emotional behavioral assessment as well, because we want to see or make sure that test anxiety is pretty common in our learning disability population. But we also want to make sure that that's not causing additional impairment on top of being unable to read or having trouble with math or writing and different things like that. So we include that as a complement in our evaluations so that we can understand you as an entire individual. And we can not only make recommendations related to academics, but we can also give you suggestions on how to help with anxiety in the moment, or connect you with a counselor or medication to help you manage that as well. So those are all the things that we include in that. If you're already signed up for our learning disability evaluation, then awesome, because we're going to walk through all of those things that I've talked about so far together. But if you have signed up for one of our other evaluations and you're concerned that your child or you might have a learning disability and you want to add that on, then feel free to mention that in our initial appointment, and we can either add that on, or we can do an academic screener and let you know kind of where you fall there and if additional testing might be needed. So that's more than a possibility to be able to do. You're not backed into a corner in either way. If you're interested in learning more about not even just our services related to learning disabilities, but learning disabilities as a topic, feel free to check out our blogs and our case studies related to clients that we've worked with in the past who have profiles related to specific learning disability. All of that is located on our services page on our website, www.mwpsychology.com. If you've gone through all of that and you still have questions about learning disability evaluations, learning disabilities as a topic, different things like that, or just questions that you have for me, then feel free to reach out to us at info@mwpsychology.com, or you can give us a call at 678-824-7733. I look forward to getting the chance to work with you. Since this is your last introduction video before your appointment, then I would like to just encourage you to make sure that you've completed all of your consent forms, that you have done your signatures for all of your HIPAA privacy practices, policies, you've done your release of information form, and most importantly, you filled out your background form prior to your evaluation, at least 24 hours or your appointment is subject to reschedule. That helps me to get to know you a lot better, even more in this case with learning disability, because I need to know all of your academic history and all the things that you have experienced thus far to help me rule out whether or not a learning disability is even the concern, or if it could be something else that we're not thinking about. And it also just helped me get to know you a little bit better too. So I look forward to getting the chance to meet you, and hopefully we've been able to answer your questions thus far, but you can also feel free to ask them to me directly when we meet for your initial appointment. So I thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I look forward to getting started with you soon. Thank you.